So maybe you've heard the stories about people in the Appalachian Mountains. Like if you're in the Appalachian Mountains and you hear your name, don't respond. Just pretend like you didn't hear nothing and slowly or just, make your way out of there, right? If you're there and you hear whistling, don't whistle back, nothing like that, right? And how is it possible for these? I'm not saying that there's a reason, right? I'm not saying that there's monsters out there mimicking human voices, but there's a reason why that is. And you should have the same attitude when it comes to anything that could be appealing to identitarian, because these identitarian politics will manipulate based on your emotions and try to ascertain, and it's interested in finding out what you think about any and everything, so you can imagine it, even if it's something they're gonna hyperbolize everything. And if it's something that speaks to an issue that needs something to solve, or if it's something that clears up gaps in your lineage, and you find out more about your timeline or your ancestors, or like almost anything. So when you're dealing with that, it's almost like you're in the Appalachian Mountains, and if you hear your name, you didn't hear anything. And if you heard someone whistling, you didn't hear anything. It's like if I heard somebody talking about Hungarian Moors' influence in American politics in the 1800s, I didn't hear anything. I might think I know something or feel a way about something, and so probably just as nothing is sacred and everything will be manipulated for dichotomizing you, for that manipulation, that ploy to try to say that we are your elders, and they're gonna be your impersonation of a church fathers, or some impersonation of somebody that's like a wise man in your same genre, and they'll make a genre of beliefs and classify it as all things this, all things that, and then at that point, then you're welcome to it. But they're gonna want to present it with some spin, because like a sensationalism or something like that, anything could lend to, and especially if there's unknowns and things like that, can lend itself to people who are into the identitarian manipulation of people and controlling them to try to hyperbolize it, to make you the butt of all jokes based on your knowledge, right? So instead of saying that Isaac Newton wasn't the whitest of all the white, that he maybe relation to some Hungarian Moors or something like that, then you're saying that he looked like Mr. T. Ha 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 ha, laughing at you and everything, and then try to pretend that your belief that it's possible for everybody who wants to be a king, and that we don't have like high crime rate, black on black, or it isn't unfairly this or that, or the cops never killed a white person, or all these things. We not saying that. And then there's these things that are happening that the progressives like to say isn't happening until you produce receipts, and then they say it's a good thing. So there is that on both sides. There's someone who can't win and someone who can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory because of short-sightedness and because they need to compartmentalize, and they have become accustomed to having a two-sided dichotomy on every situation, where you can say that because I have validity in most of the things that I'm saying, and it's easier to have an enemy who underthinks, who underplays prepares and is lazy and likes to say things like literally or affix a suffix to a word to make it a new word, or like all this kind of lazy shit. And when you don't do your homework and when you fall behind, and a different class of people who stayed out of the fray and looked at things for the perspective that they could really reflect comes up smelling like roses, then you're going to want to say that you was never with all that bullshit. You were never one of those. So, and then that just leaves a certain, I guess, question about whether or not some doctrines are okay for people who were not, who did not take the full, like, what's it called? Package narrative. So you might have some Gnosticism still left over, or you might have some or something that you would think of as like a negative, but then there's something still in it that is maybe archetype. So there's archetypal energies and things. So if you understand it, you're not manipulated by the emotionalism. You just took a deeper look at it, and then you're just willing to, even if it's unpopular, to see it for what it is and know it for what it is, even if your position is not being, nobody's soliciting positions like that. Don't want to hear you. Get that shit out of my chat. Get that shit off my screen. Because in your mind, you think, and maybe you have a right to think that you're being played with, because I haven't validated that yet. And I don't know who you are. You're in here saying things. You're saying this, that. I've never heard that before. But you know that part of getting the thought process and going and reflecting and getting more clear perspective won't happen until someone becomes disturbed. So sometimes you have to just upset them before they even think. So sometimes it's an art of getting people to think. So you have to get them a certain amount of irritation. You're not overboard, just a little bit. You irritate them just a little bit. And then that way you can see the psyche with the idea that, as unpopular as it may be, you hope or you suspect that they have enough to look at it for what it is too. So it's like having an effect without trying to use too many verbose. You're not trying to go overboard with speech. There's maybe more you can do with less speech. But I can see my channel is getting boring as fuck, because I know that I'm talking about stuff like we all know this already. Why do you need to hear it and everything like that? But I'm just saying, because my enemies are the ones that are able to flip-flop and doesn't really care or matter their position, because they never weighed in or had a position anyway. Then it's only the factor that they could point out to something they feel like you resonate with to make you feel bad. So it wouldn't even work if they didn't know that it made you emotional. Then they wouldn't even appeal to it anyway. So it's like, yeah, they can make fun of some aspect of something that you could say I'm not living up to, just because I'm realizing it for what it is. How can you have opposition to a perspective? You may not even know what my perspective is if I never told you. So how would you have an enemy then, right? They don't know who it is, right? They don't know what you think, right? But you could still feel them trying to find out what you think. When they run out of ideas, and when they get writer's block and they run out of speculation powers to build on their narrative, they're going to have no place to go to but me or somebody who can add context. It's just because right now it's like it's an ability for understanding, and then later on it will turn into reflection and a perspective, and then about that perspective it will turn into a battle for authenticity. Who allowed it to come to the forefront and the focal point, who allowed this to happen, because whatever happened led to some kind of progress or some kind of recovery. So even if I was played part in it, I'm not a progressive. God uses people, and sometimes he stops using people for reasons we don't know why. We didn't even always make ourselves ready or willing for God to use you. You don't sometimes have to. Sometimes he uses slow people. Sometimes he uses stubborn, slow, dumb people for his message. So to get the benefits, I guess, like health and mental benefits, for getting yourself ready to be used. But I can't say that it's even necessary. He might say, just chill. I don't need to see that you will take action. I want to see if you can just exist. So everybody who's made themselves ready to be used by God has to be used by God, but you can get the benefits. So you're just like, bless you and shit. So you take this, and that. No, I didn't want you to fucking lead a revolution. I wanted you to marry so-and-so, and then your brother died, so his widow, and then you have to take care of them. Like, who's going to tell you that's not what God told you to do? No, you got to go out and fight because somebody came against your identitarian beliefs that I assume that I thought I knew that you, so I'm appealing to you to try to just like counterfeit and trick you. Can you say that there's no people out there who are interested in glomming onto someone else's, like, how they're trying to tie everything together? Like Arthur Ashe and Che Guevara and the LGBT and everybody for Palestine. Like, is that real? Or is that just like a crisis that you can exploit? So then in the sense, you have to be happy that it exists. And so while you're playing these games and acting like this compassionate heart person, you're going to be with no clothes at one point in time. People are going to be able to tell that you didn't give a fuck whole time. You never cared. It was always butter biscuits. You were always like, I can't believe it's not butter, with Fabio fucking trying fucking Thomas's English muffins. That's not what it is. Like, you make me think it's assimilation. And then they got to convince you that everything's a matrix, because there are some aspects, matrixy aspects of the entity that sits over this realm that is a matrix. That doesn't mean that everything in this experience is fake. See that? When they want you to believe that everything is fake, it will be for a reason. And when they want you to believe it's assimilation. So, and then Alex Jones even was susceptible to think that kind of thinking. The body's a prison, and this is all like a prison mechanism, matrix construct simulation. Because there's a artificial, what's it called? Because there's a human artificial agenda to advance drone warfare using space age polymers.